Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Steps of Isha, protector of the natural order and mother of the elven race. She is worshipped by both the High Elves and the Wood Elves, and her avatars Ariel and Alarielle lead their respective races. The Steps are a new free content addition to Total War Warhammer 2, 4 adjacent battlefields situated on different tiers, with a malignant corruption breaking down the surrounding lands. This is the first, the Pit of Thorns, and as the tendrils of chaos spread, the Dark Elves, Tomb Kings, Skaven, and Bretonnians will battle for control. This was a really cool 2v2 in large part due to the absolutely awesome map design with tons of interesting terrain and different ways to approach an engagement, something I've been begging for in open field battles. So Skaven and Bretonnians working together in the most lore-friendly of alliances, and Khalida and Malekith working together on the other. On that Necro Serpent, the Queen is a powerful duelist and super speedy, and she's backed up by the Sphinx of Usekf, one of the most terrifying and expensive single entity monsters in the game, with magical attacks and flaming attacks and a gigantic bonus first large. You do not want to be fighting that thing one-on-one in melee combat if you're pretty much anything in the game. And as we shift over, Tomb King's under a hail of Plague Claw catapult fire. It's going to get kicked off between the Dark Elves and Bretonnians, and those poor Dark Riders had absolutely no idea what was coming, and that's a really nice awakening of the wood, actually, that will slow their speed down to 48, which means that cavalry should be able to close the gap. Not sure he's seen it yet, but it doesn't matter. Pegasus Knights and Louen on top of his terrifying Hippogriff Bakeys, they're going to be able to close the gap, and those Dark Rider repeater crossbows will die right off the bat. Louen getting in there, slaying some riders with those big talons and the Hippogriff itself. So yeah, Malekith moving up now, and the Questing Knights leading their charge, going directly into the back of the Blackguard Corsairs. We're trying to retreat to the safety of their army, and they're not going to make it as that AP and that powerful weapon skill from the Zweihanders carves a bloody swath. And this is just straight YOLO from the Bretonnians right now, smashing through the front ranks of Bleak Swords, and the Dark Elves already shocked and awed by this Bretonnian Blitzkrieg. I love it. I love it. You don't typically see frontal charges like that with the Bretonnians. It seems to be doing very well right now. And the Skaven are moving up, and it looks like the Tomb Kings have actually retreated back away from the ravine here, moving further away. Did not want to ascend that massive hill where the Plague Claw catapult was making its home. Gonna force them a little bit further up to do some more, basically to get in range and start shooting again. But the Questing Knights are now locked into combat. Blackguard of Nagaron have finally sallied forward, moving up now. And when that AP bonus first large, extremely powerful offensive halberdiers, when they get into combat, that will start shifting things. You can see the Bretonnian cavalry attack starting to get stymied a little bit here. Dark Shards being overrun. A lot of these Questing Knights actually rampaged by the Madness of Cain and the Witch Elves, so good use of them there. But Malekith surrounded by Royal Pegasus Knights and by Louen, and he's on a cold one, which means no knockdown immunity, and he'll be taking the full frontal damage from all of those units. Not good for Malekith over there. Might die very early on. But here we have Deathclaw Bombardiers moving up under a salvo of Great Bow Ushabti fire. And even though they're not large, very good target actually, because each of those bolts will have more than enough damage to kill a single model as long as they hit. A lot of those just miss though, and interestingly enough, a lot of the Plague Claw catapults are opening fire into those Great Bow Ushabti. Not typically what you're going to see going for monsters with your artillery like that, because those are meant for infantry, but it actually has brought down those Great Bows about to half strength, so not bad usage at all. And the Bretonnian attack is now completely stopped. This is why you don't do frontal cavalry attacks that often. It can, you'll do a lot of damage off the charge, but after that, cavalry just kind of gets worn down. You need to cycle charge. You need to have the support from other infantry. It's not like Attila or some other Total Wars where Medieval 2, especially, where cavalry can just charge in and destroy entire units by itself. They need support, and they didn't have it there, so that Bretonnian cavalry attack has been stopped. But all the infantry for Bretonnia is over on this side, so not the biggest deal in the world. And honestly, the Dark Elves took a lot of damage in that first fight. But now Khalida moving up to engage the Skaven here on top of that Necro Serpent. Look at how fast she is. That is absolutely terrifying. Can you imagine seeing that thing running at you? I mean, for their sake, I really hope the Skaven brought their brown pants. She's about to do some work. I mean, they are Skaven slaves, so they're not exactly going to do a lot of damage to her anyway. But Venomous Gale carving a path there with a big explosion, creating some space so she can escape again. And in about the space of 2 seconds, she's already killed about half the Skaven slaves in that unit. Just a meat shield, not the biggest deal in the world. But the rest of the Bretonnians and Skaven now moving up. And the Tomb Kings have retreated all the way back to the safety of their own ravine, so they can get away from the withering salvos of Plague Claw catapult shots. If they had had to ascend that first hill where the Skaven were camped at the beginning, it would have been a very, very bad attack. That hill is amazing. That is one thing that characterizes all these maps, except for the free-for-all one. They all have some great camping positions. They all have some big hills that you can sit on top of, but there's so much terrain and so many ways to approach each of those hills that there's a lot of interesting ways to actually engage. And it looks like some of the Warlock Engineers, explosions going off from the Doom Rocket, and the Tomb Guard and Nagcaran Warriors all across the line now clashing with the Bretonnian Peasants, Men-at-Arms, and with the Clan Rats and Slave Rats. The Sphinx of Usak impaling a very unfortunate, I think that was maybe a Bretonnian or a Slave Rat, I'm not sure which, impaling him, bisecting him as he lands, some Warp Lightning falling down, and that is going to be a very nice cost-efficient spell to lower the HP and model count of each of those Tomb Guard and Nagcaran War units. But over the top here comes Louen and Royal Pegasus Knights going straight for Khalida, trying to snipe her early, but they are very close to that Sphinx and very close to the Necropolis Knights with halberds, and those are fantastic for killing monsters like the Royal Pegasus Knights or like Louen, and now he is in a bad way with some worse constructs. I'm not sure he wants to stick around there, but he's poisoned, and escaping from that engagement might be pretty tough. We'll check back on that in a second here. Queek Headtaker in the thick of the fighting as Realm of Souls triggers at level 1, giving them a little burst of healing. Pretty negligible, honestly, but when that Ushabti gets summoned, it might shift the infantry fight a little bit back in the Tomb King's favor. They're massively outnumbered right now, though. They're technically fighting two armies at once, Bretonnians and Clan Rats. All the Slave Rats, all the Skaven infantry, all engaging the Tomb Guard all at once. Royal Pegasus Knights and some Questing Knights already shattered with that big goon squad of bonus for Large and Poison working together very nicely. Louen did escape, but the Royal Pegasus Air Force is gone, and a lot of the cavalry is as well. Tomb Guard is starting to slow down here, starting to get overwhelmed as the hilarious, straight out of Monty Python Grail Reliquary sticks in there, do a little bit of killing. And the Sphinx of Usak can almost single-handedly take on these Questing Knights. In fact, I'm pretty sure it could. They're not going to stick around. They'll actually go for a Hammer Anvil very nice on the main line. Queek Headtaker is charged through the entire infantry formation and trying to duel Khalida. That's honestly not the worst thing ever, because Khalida, even though she does have good melee attack, she's not fantastic at actually doing damage to dismounted lords, because she just bullies them and throws them around instead of actually hitting a lot of her attacks. So Queek might not do a lot of damage, but he's not necessarily going to take a lot of damage either, because he's going to be on his ass with that knockdown invulnerability half the time. Dark Elves have come in from behind now, attacking from where the Skaven initially deployed, and Skaven are surrounded, but they can plug the gap with only 2 or 3 units, and full-strength Storm Vermin should be able to deal with pretty much anything the Dark Elves send their way, because they took so much damage from those Bretonnian cavalry attacks. You look at their army, they are pretty much in tatters. A few Blackguard and Nagcaran still in decent shape, but other than that, yeah, that army was beaten up pretty bad by the Bretonnian cavalry attack. The Nagcaran warriors being overrun by the Vermintide here, as Queek Headtaker finds himself completely surrounded in that dark ravine by a bunch of Necropolis Knights and Necro Serpents. Louen on top of Bakis. Is he gonna go in there? Yeah, Ushabti have been summoned behind the lines of the Men-at-Arms, and they're reaping a terrible toll there with their dual weapons. I mean, that is just the perfect way to use them. In the back of a bunch of chaff, they will carve through them like a hot knife through butter. But Storm Vermin with halberds coming in to reinforce. Very nice use of the reserves there and surrounding the Ushabti, and they are not going to be able to sustain here as they begin popping. The binding that holds those constructs in place failing, and the Ushabti will fall. But the Sphinx of Usak still mostly full HP, and that Archer Blob still working its magic there with Khalida's support. She's not quite in range, I don't think. I believe they need to be within a 40-meter radius of her, but with the Legion of Demonetized and 2 more archers firing in, those Storm Vermin will take a lot of their HP in damage as they move up under that withering salvo of skirmish fire. There are some Shades still alive, though, getting some really good shots in this Skaven Blob, and Blackguard and Nagcaran have managed to bust through and get into the Deathglow Bombardiers. We're now dying, dropping like flies. Plague Claw catapults opening up fire again, but they don't have a great line of sight, honestly, and they might struggle to hit some targets there, as everything is getting into combat here, and I can't imagine those Storm Vermin will do well with the Sphinx of Usak charging it from behind, and the Necropolis Knights in front. Yeah, I mean, they would typically do well against big constructs. They are AP, they are bonus versus large, but they can be pretty susceptible to terror routing, and that's what we might see here as Warp Lightning is continuously gets cast by that Warlock Engineer. We've seen that come down like 6 or 7 times, continuously harassing those archers, the Tomb Guard, and the Nagkarn warriors. The Dark Elves army, there's like nothing left except a few of those Dark Shards. That's pretty much it. Firing those AP bolts in, and Plague Claw has actually moved up into a very nice position to fire down into the Dark Ravine. The miasma, that mist coming up from the depths of that little ravine there, and it's pretty cool looking. I love the contrast of some of it is beautiful and bright and green and verdant, and some of it is just dark and evil looking. It's a really cool design for a map, and I'm really hoping that CA takes the time to design maps like this more in the future and actually ports these ones over to the campaign as well, because it shouldn't just be custom and multiplayer that gets the benefit of it. I mean, I think we all should, honestly. But there's Warp Lightning Cannon that comes down, and that actually is not terrible against big groups of monsters if they're grouped up like that. If they were single entities kind of spread out, wouldn't do any damage, but actually did a little bit of damage to those Necropolis Knights there. And the Legion of Demonetized and the Archer Blob still doing what they can as Storm Vermin run down those archers. Might get them to crumble very soon. The Tomb Guard and the Tomb King's infantry in general, their line has been completely overrun here. But to be honest, at this point, every single army on the map is in complete tatters. Dark Elves are on their last legs. Bretonnians don't have much left, none of their cavalry, but Louen is still alive. Their peasants are being decapitated and dismembered by the huge armor-piercing halberds of those Black Guard. But everything covered in each other's blood, everything soon to be dead. Deathglow Bombardiers jibbing a couple of units there as well. Plague Claw Catapult still in the fight, but not for long. More Warp Lightning falling down on top of the archers, and we have such a spread out battlefield here. So cool. These are the kind of battles that I love, where you've got multiple stages of engagements, where you're fighting all over the map, utilizing the entire map to its fullest potential. This is where Total War gets really, really fun. And the battle this late into the game is still completely dead even too, which is a really important thing. And look at that shot there. Got a little bit of gloomy wood action going on as the sunlight just barely breaks through the trees. Gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. And Khalida and her Necro Serpents trying their best to carry this battle. Louen making sure the Dark Elves don't rally. Black Ark Corsairs running. They have been terrified, and Louen will probably stay on them and make sure they don't come back to the fight. I think I said Corsairs. Those are Dark Shards. Don't let those Dark Shards come back. You do not want that AP come back in, because they, I mean, if they got a good volley off on Louen, they can maybe take him down, but I don't think they'll be given that opportunity. The Bretonnians and Skaven have rallied. A handful of the Royal Pegasus Air Force have come back to the fight on their last slivers of health. And Queek running away, literally, not just figuratively, literally running for the hills here. And Khalida gonna give him no mercy, no quarter, and eating him alive. And the Skaven Warlord has fallen here as the Warlock Engineer is completely surrounded by the Necro Serpents. And Royal Pegasus decide to go in and fight the Sphinx. That was not a good decision, but to be honest, they weren't going to be able to do much anyway. They're probably just going to get terror round the next time they enter combat. More Warp Lightning falling down. Must be the 10th time that spell's been used. And doing a little bit more health. Take a little bit more health from them. Tomb Guard holding the line here as Clan Rats and Storm Vermin pour into the breach. And supported by the Sphinx of Usak, these Tomb Guard will try to hold the line as the Grail Reliquary gets in there. It looks so goofy in the middle of a bunch of Skaven. And the Sphinx doesn't care. Those two twin-bladed scythes just reaping a terrible toll. And in amongst those Skaven, the Necropolis Knights looking to get in and charge from the rear of the flank. That could cause a chain rout, maybe. But the Grail Reliquary leadership buff, I believe, will also benefit the Skaven here. So they might not get terror routed very easily. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that Sphinx. It's a complete monster. Just an absolute monster. To be fair, it is not great against infantry. It is designed to kill monsters and other single entities. It doesn't kill a lot of models per swing, but all these units are so damaged that it is doing quite well and causing quite a lot of havoc as Necropolis Knights try desperately to cause the terror rout here, doing some really powerful charges in the back of this blob. And there is some routing. Khalida gonna use her Venom Staff. First time we've seen that in action. Oh my god! Completely carving a swath through the center of those Storm Vermin. And they're gonna instantly run. And I don't really blame them. That was a really powerful use of that Venom Staff there. Must have killed 20, 30 models at least. The Necropolis Knights making such a big impact here in the late game. There's not a whole lot left on any army. Skaven need to rally, though, if they're going to take this battlefield back from the Tomb Kings. There's no infantry for them left, though. It's Khalida. It's a handful of Necropolis Knights. Storm Vermin have rallied. And here comes Louen. And this could decide the battle. If Khalida goes down here, it's over for the Tomb Kings. Those Necropolis Knights coming in, though. Getting that poison and doing that on Louen. Some of the constructs going down. But he doesn't have a lot of support back there. And the Sphinx looks to be able to carry it here. And fighting that Grail Reliquary now that does count as a large unit. And that should pretty much seal the deal here. Balance bar shifting in the Tomb King's favor. And it's going to be up to Louen. But he doesn't have a lot of health left. Neither does Khalida. Neither does the Warlock Engineer. Everything on its last legs. But the Grail Reliquary cannot fight a Sphinx. As funny as that matchup looks, that 1v1 is hilarious to watch. And I mean, those peasants are some brave dudes, man. Some brave dudes. But Louen will rout. Grail Reliquary will rout. And that will be the end of the game. Such a fun battle. Used the entire map. Used all of those different choke points and those different ways to attack and engage. And it wasn't just simple football. There was a lot of stages and elements to that battle. There was kiting. There was approaching from different sides. An army getting completely surrounded by two different armies. There was a lot to that battle. Really, really enjoyable. At least from my perspective there. So the Questing Knights did a ton of damage in that opening attack. Look at that. All over 100, about 140, 138, 137, 139. And yeah, that cavalry did a lot. Would have done better probably if they had been waited to engage at some other point in the battle when the infantry lines had already clashed and they came in for hammer and anvils and stuff. But still really fun to watch that attack. And honestly, it worked. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with the results there. And it was especially cool to see the Skaven engage the Tomb Kings and then turn around and leave their elites to deal with the Dark Elves who came in from behind, moving from the exact same ravine the Skaven had initially assaulted from. So that was a really cool element of the battle. You can see the Dark Elves there got some decent kills on their Black Guard and on their Dark Shards, and the Skaven, yeah, their Skaven elites definitely did well. The Bombardiers were okay, Plague Claw over 100, and the Storm Vermin with Halberds all near 100 as well. But the Tomb Kings got massive amounts of kills. I mean, the Tomb Guard were over, one of them almost got 300, Necrosphinx got over 150. Really fun one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Any Pride, signing out for now.